to FinTech Fun Talks hosted by Copper Canvas Ads Agency. We help fintechs grow in a 12-month period. Our guest today is Sandeep Sood, and he is the founder and owner of Kunai. Sandeep, thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's great to be here, Christy.
We'd like to get a little bit of a background on you, what got you into the fintech industry, and then a little bit on Kunai, where you are today.
So I have been a serial entrepreneur since I was 20 years old. I started my first consulting business then, and I owned a previous consulting company that helped a large financial institution, one of the top five financial institutions in the world, move to the cloud. And so they were the first large FI to move to the cloud. And as a result, a few years later, we were acquired. We ended up being acquired by Capital One. I spent 3 years internally at Capital One and learned the ins and outs of financial services. When I got in, I knew absolutely nothing. I was a generalist, had no financial experience whatsoever, couldn't even really balance a checkbook properly, but learned the difference between an issuing and an acquiring bank, learned a lot over those 3 years, and also just realized how far behind the financial industry was when compared to, say, a tech company in terms of infrastructure and modernization. So we started Kunai to fill that need.
Before we get into a little bit of what Kunai is doing, I wanted to ask, so after you started this company, it was acquired. Did that seem fast to you? That seems like a quick turnaround to me.
So it was what we call a 10-year overnight success. So I spent 10 years working on the company. First 5 years were essentially moving sideways, really figuring it out. I was a young businessman, didn't really know the fundamentals well enough, didn't have my work ethic at a place where I wanted it to be. And then the last 5 years really figured it out and began to scale the company.
When you were quite young, like that is a lot to be taking on and to build and to then move that on to something that can be acquired.
Yeah, I mean, I
So,
think every time you start a company, it's sort of an irrational decision. If you actually are thinking rationally, you're not going to do it. And so you got to kind of move irrationally sometimes.
or sometimes feel like you want to quit a lot of times along the way. Like when you were talking about that 5-year period where you're figuring a lot of things out, or maybe changing direction a little bit along the way too, just because you are learning things as you move forward. Those could be challenging times.
Yeah, for sure. There was a specific moment when the 2008 financial crisis hit. Obviously, a lot of financial institutions went under, and we lost about a third of our business overnight, like really overnight, like in 24 hours. And there was a moment where I sat around a table with my partners over lunch, and we were planning on how to shut down the business. I had already submitted an application to go get my MBA, and I was ready to fail and just sort of go get a corporate job at some point. That lunch was probably one of the most important moments I had as an entrepreneur because sort of learned the grit and the resolve and the resilience it takes to keep going and to see a business through.
I mean, and it's amazing that it can be something that turns things around in a very short time period, a lunch. Are you willing to share something that you learned during that lunch that helped turn things around?
Yeah, we were very emotional. We had just learned we lost a third of our business. We were all sitting. It was like some outdoor restaurant in San Francisco, and it was a crazy 2 hours because we started planning the sort of conclusion of this business, and there were tears. There was 5 years of work. There were mortgages that were going to be missed, mortgage payments that were going to be missed. And I think I learned a lot about the people I was working with. I saw the resolve in them. I think without a team of people you trust, entrepreneurship can be very, very lonely. And so I think I learned a lot about the people I was working with and their grit. And I learned also that when your back is up against the wall, you do some of your best work. So during that lunch, we saw things very clearly and objectively, figured out what pieces were left, and realized that we actually had a lot left. We had a lot going for us. And economic cycles are just cycles. Things will bounce back. And so we took that belief in each other and turned it into something.
That is a big loss. That's something that would, I think, shake any leader, to have that happen in a 24-hour period. Mm. Okay, so at this point, shall we jump into Kunai and talking about how easy it is to do customized software and how that's really the path forward?
Yeah, so I have a fundamental thesis about where software development is heading. For the last 20 years, we've seen the dominance of enterprise SaaS. Every large institution has implemented Salesforce. They implemented things like SAP even decades before that. And they've been dependent on these systems of record for most of our careers. Like there's very few people who've been around before what were originally ERP solutions and now SaaS solutions emerged. And there's been this fundamental belief that you need a centralized system of record that is vanilla flavored, meaning you buy it and you're buying a vanilla flavored product. And then you are spending years and millions, in some cases, billions of dollars customizing and making them work for your organization. If you ask anyone inside these enterprises if they're done or if they've actually achieved the mission that was promised to them when they bought this software, very few will be positive about that. They will say, no, it's not really worked out. And I think this centralized SaaS model is on its last legs. And I think that for a few reasons. I think one reason is that we are now able to build software much more cheaply and efficiently and more quickly than ever before. And we're now able to leverage LLMs to do things that may actually remove the need for one system of record to hold all of the data for, let's say, HR or finance or something like that. So I think we're entering an era of customized software, customized solutions, but more than customized software solutions, I think we're heading towards an era of outcomes where you're not just thinking about the features of a software product, you are thinking about the business outcome that you need. And you're building backwards from the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And I think that internal teams are going to have a lot more responsibility. Really smart niche consultancies are going to do very well in this environment. And that's how I'm positioning Kunai.
I'm curious if you have some examples that you can share of how you've seen this happen, where this vanilla flavored SaaS model is not meeting the needs. You're seeing it kind of break down a bit, and maybe success stories of people who have been adopting that customized solution.
The example I'll give you is everywhere and everything, meaning I would challenge anyone to show me a large enterprise that is happy and wildly efficient with the centralized system of record or SaaS solution that they're using. And we have been chipping away at this. So I can't name the specific financial
For sure. Yeah,
institutions,
that's fine.
but at several financial institutions, we are implementing solutions that are taking very simple, easily definable outcomes. So let's say you want to automate invoice processing inside of a specific department in finance, or you're trying to automate the creation of quarterly presentations or board updates or analytics that you're presenting on a regular basis. And we're able to go to a bunch of unstructured data, so meaning data that's stored in PDFs and spreadsheets and Word documents, and leverage simple code as well as LLM-driven automations to on the fly build presentations, to automate the full process of invoice processing and organization. So the examples right now are quite simple because that's how you start. You take very specific use cases and you then figure out a very simple outcome that you can create for your customer, essentially to prove that the larger outcome is possible, that eventually you can do away with the system of record. And so we're in the early stages of this right now, but we're already seeing that people are beginning to wake up to the fact that they can actually produce outcomes, and eventually they'll be able to produce enough outcomes that it'll actually remove the need for the SaaS software that they're so dependent on in the first place.
I have a question for you. The reason that we made everything vanilla, right? When I say we, I just mean technology in general. We need
Mhm.
to make this mass solution that meets most of the needs of most of the people, right? And I think a lot of it was done due to cost effectiveness. We've got to make something that again most people can use. Customizing is really cost prohibitive. And so what are your views on that? How have you seen that change in recent years?
Yeah. So I think the The way SaaS software has been sold has been really to suit the business model of the startups, the SaaS startup companies, because the beauty of vanilla flavored software is you write it once and then you can sell it a million times. So there's
Exactly.
no marginal cost to selling another unit of a vanilla piece of software. Whereas if you customize every solution, you now are facing a lot more costs, but you're also producing actual outcomes for your customers. Generally speaking, I don't think SaaS has saved the clients any money. It's actually likely ended up costing them more, both in opportunity costs because they're not running as efficiently as they could be, and in the customization that takes years and years and never really finishes. And so I think at some point it likely made sense. There were simple needs to centralized HR data or financial data, and you do need that at some extent. There may be a future state where systems of record are used, but they're not used for everything. You're not trying to turn this simple centralized solution into everything that you're doing at the company. But I think for the true value that's currently lacking at these institutions, they need outcomes. And niche consultancy or an internal team that is focused on outcomes is going to produce a lot more value.
And save time too. I think a lot of times that is taken out of the equation or people don't necessarily think about it because here's the solution. This is what my competitor is using. Let's go ahead and use that. But it doesn't solve the need that you specifically have in your business. And so you're wasting time, you're wasting money and going for that. When you can customize something that is specifically for you, you do end up saving both in the long run.
Totally, yes.
Is there anything else about Kanai that you want to specifically make sure that those that are watching know about?
So we focus exclusively on financial services. I did that so that we can build expertise both organically, just by giving our engineers experience in the industry, and inorganically by bringing experts from financial services companies, from other consultancies. We only hire mid-level to senior level engineers. So we take a lot of pride in the proficiency that each of our developers has, and the goal is to keep teams small and efficient. So when traditionally you may need 10 or 20 teams to achieve a large outcome, we can sometimes accomplish the same thing with 3 or 4 teams that are small and tight. And I think that's really the future of software development in general. And then we're also focused on AI powered outcomes and automation for our customers in general.
Can you speak a little bit more about that AI component? I know that that's interesting to a lot of the people that are watching.
Yeah, sure. So at the end of the day, I really prefer to talk about automation in general, but AI is a big part of that. The goal for Kunai and for the majority of its customers is to automate more and more of their business processes, more and more of the manual work that they're doing every day so that their employees can really focus on more creative outcomes. And so we leverage LLMs where appropriate. There are numerous use cases, especially when you're dealing with unstructured data, where an LLM can get in and do the work, let's say at a college intern level, or it seems like it's advancing every week. So perhaps the level is going up week by week in terms of the proficiency that an LLM can offer. But it's often the perfect solution for the automation of a business process.
Great. I'd like to pick your brain a little bit too about the industry in general. Having the experience that you do, I think that your ideas on the trends that you're currently seeing will be really valuable. Have you been seeing anything in the recent year to 2 years that has been different from what you've seen before?
I mean, we'll start with AI. I think from every angle, our daily functions are changing. An engineer can now code at least exponentially faster by a factor of two. That may be at 3 or 5 or 10 a year from now. I don't really know. And all of our clients, especially those who have manual business processes that they need to work on every day, are now able to leverage LLMs in a very compelling way. Outside of AI, very intrigued by stablecoins. I think there is the potential to have a stablecoin infrastructure that may be a long-term competitor to the payment rails that are offered, for instance, by credit card companies. So a very intriguing trend, a very low cost and highly efficient and programmable way to handle payments cross-border between vendors domestically. All of that is going to be very, very exciting to watch over the next few years.
Yeah. Something that has been such a challenge, those cross-border payments, it's been a challenge to disrupt the current rails. They've been in place and things are just built on top and on top and on the side. And so to see something that might come in and stand on its own and provide new options, especially those cross-border options, will be really interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about that.
Are there challenges in the industry that make it difficult for fintechs to move forward?
Well, the regulatory environment right now is very confusing for better and worse. So, speaking apolitically, there are a lot of regulations that are being removed, which will make it easier for financial institutions and fintechs to operate. At the same time, there's a lot of regulatory infrastructure that is being handicapped, which actually presents challenges to financial institutions and fintechs because one thing that financial companies of all sizes love is clarity. So if they know what the rules are, if they know what the playing field is, it's possible to operate. It's difficult, but it's possible. But we're in a very confusing time period. There's so much changing from a regulatory standpoint that I think a lot of financial institutions are in a wait and see type of pattern because they're just not sure what the environment's going to be like in a few months, let's say, or even in a few weeks sometimes these days. And so I think there's just a lot of confusion in the marketplace.
And if you were able to share some advice with those who are in their early stages of their fintech business, having had the experience that you have and having pushed forward through difficult times, what advice would you share?
The first thing I'd say is if I'm speaking to entrepreneurs, I'd say just be really sure that you want to make the sacrifices and put in the work to start a business. It's not for everyone. It should not be for everyone. It's not the best life decision, let's say, if you enjoy going out and enjoying your 20s or your 30s. And so make sure you have a problem or a passion that is compelling enough to keep you working through the ups and downs. And then I think financial cycles are just financial cycles. There's no right time to start a business. You can do so at any time in any environment. Obviously, there'll be curveballs, but the next cycle will always just be a few years around the corner. So the best time to start a business, if you're compelled to do so, is right now.
Good advice. I like that.
This was fantastic, Christy. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being a guest on the show today. Thanks for watching our podcast today. I'm Kristen Nielsen. I'm the owner of Copper Canvas Ads Agency, and we partner with fintechs to help them scale their business within a 12-month period. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I've seen how saturated the market can be, and therefore how difficult it can be to make your business stand out in a sea of other fintechs that may look similar or maybe even slightly different. But how do you make yours stand out? How do you get your message to the right people and those with high buying intent? That's what Copper Canvas Ads Agency is here to do. We are a growth partner, and we take a deep dive into your business to really understand what your strong points are, where there may be areas of weakness, and how we can fill those areas of weakness and create a plan to move forward in a strong way and really scale. So if you are interested, simply go to our website, coppercanvasadsagency.com, and schedule a time. There are buttons right there on the front page for you to book a time, and then we'll love to talk to you and see what we're able to do together.